I'm going to be doing some re-landscaping at the chateau, but before I do, I'm going to pay a visit today to my friends Jim Bruner and Rick Riley, who live just a couple of blocks away. You know, I've heard it said that no idea is ever really new. Somebody, someplace has probably already tried it, but I'm not sure that that's necessarily true with Rick and Jim. Rick and Jim are gentlemen farmers. At least they dress the part. But they are just a couple of the truly fascinating people I know who happen to live in Old Town East. Jim and Rick operate an urban farm they call Mezzacello. And the best description I can think of is it's kind of a combination of European formal gardens that Rick maintains and a closed system, totally sustainable, farm-to-table ecosystem that Jim is experimenting with for application on Mars. That's right, you heard me. But I'd better leave the explaining up to them.
Hi.
Hey, Jim.
Yes.
You know, Jim, in my intro that I just filmed, I said something about, I've heard it said that there's never really a new idea, that somebody somewhere has probably already tried it, but I wasn't sure if that was necessarily true with you and Rick.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
you all are coming up with these great ideas.
Good artists borrow, great artists steal.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, absolutely. We have developed systems, but you can't develop systems if you're ignorant. If you've never seen it, you can't be what you haven't seen.
Ignorant meaning just unaware.
Unaware.
Yeah.
Ignorant isn't a bad thing.
Right.
It's only a bad thing if you consistently hold to it.
Yeah.
Then it's a horrible curse. But ignorance is a primal force. We need to be ignorant so that we can become informed.
Right.
And that's exactly what the ethos of Mezzacello is. What have we lost in the 100 years from my great-great-grandmother to today?
Yeah.
What have we lost? How do we find it again? How do we do that faster next time?
Yeah. Speaking of Mezzacello, tell me the story again of how you came up with that name. And Rick, you might want to get in on this.
What's up?
Come here.
Come here.
Come here, Curious George's manhandler.
Hey,
I'll
Rick.
ask the question, how did we come up with the name Mezzacello?
Oh,
He tells the story better than I do.
yeah, you haven't told it yet? Oh. Well, I was being snarky. He was looking for a name. Well, actually, it wasn't a name. You were just saying you wanted to do something.
Wanted to do something.
Like Thomas Jefferson did at Monticello.
Sure.
And so I was just being snarky and said, yeah, more like Mezzacello. So it doesn't really mean anything. It just, mezza's for little in Italian. I
Right.
don't think Mezzacello actually translates, but that's how it came about. And so...
Whereas Monte means large or grand, right?
Yeah, I learned to keep my mouth shut, and
You know, and it's just fun. It's fun.
Yeah, it is. That's great. Well, let's take a look at your gardens because I'm going to be planning some re-landscaping.
Okay.
And I'd like to maybe borrow some ideas
Absolutely.
from what you guys have
There's
done.
nothing to be borrowed here. Take what you have. It's a learning lab.
originality is the art of forgetting your source.
And duplication is the most sincere form of flattery, right? Imitation? All right, let's walk back there.
Okay.
I grew up East Coast, and so I was familiar with people who gardens, and there were a lot of ornamental gardens that sort of inspired what happened here. Although they're much nicer and they're much more groomed. I just grew up with that, and this is a comfort thing. It's one of the things I tell people when they garden is think of some place that you've been that brought you joy, and then do your interpretation of that. Go back to that, and it's what restorative. It's there's something about coming out.
Definitely.
And, okay. So, but also though too, because we're in an older neighborhood here, and we've got an Italianate house. part of what I was trying to do was, in my mind, what would they have considered an Italianate garden when the house was built in the 1800s? At that time, they had just uncovered Pompeii. They were beginning to travel.
Right.
They didn't see flowers in those gardens because no one had planted them yet. They just saw a lot of garden rooms with garden green walls.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of what I'm trying to build here of green walls in rooms and spaces. I've got the LA with the hornbeams. I've got the boxwood bordering the different rooms here. We started, because I lean toward the south from my background, I've tried to bring in a lot of plants that I used to love. And it's slowly we're warming up here and it's working. I've got crepe myrtles, I've got monkey grass. I had to learn the difference between some species. There was monkey grass here in Ohio, but it's not the monkey grass we use in the south. And the monkey grass up here wants to run. The monkey grass we use down there wants to mount. So big difference. If you want a border, you want to use the right.
Here it spreads by the roots, right?
So I put out, a buddy of mine gave me Lariape spicata. We call it monkey grass in the south, but he gave me the spicata, and it wants to run. And what I thought I was getting and only knew about and didn't know it by name was the Lariape muscari. And it wants to mount, and that makes a better border. This is good if you have a place that, like over here at Wendy's, they've got a large area there. They just want a ground cover, and that's a great plant for that. If you want a border, it's not such a great plant. You have to fight it all the time. It keeps wanting to grow into my.
I got the idea to use Lariape at my place from the squares in Charleston, or in Savannah, Georgia.
Okay, well, you got to know the difference.
I know, and I recognize the difference now because what I got is the Indiana variety of Lariape, and it does spread. It does want to run.
To be fair, the spicata was hardy enough to grow up here, and before climate change began setting in, muscari was iffy in Ohio. You could put it out; it might or might not make the winter. But here lately, since I put it in, it's made it. It's not. I haven't had to worry about it.
Okay.
So
we'll have to try that.
We're at Mezzacello here. These are my gardens, and last year I ran a project all summer long during COVID called Project Martian. And what I wanted to do, I really wanted to reframe this enclosed sustainable ecosystem for what young people are going to be inheriting in the next coming generations, where it's going to be necessary to create life somewhere where life doesn't exist. So there are 6 ecosystems here at Mezzacello. The first are the formal gardens, which Rick manages for me, and they provide compost to this project.
Sure.
They also provide beauty, and never underestimate the value of beauty. It is important. If you only surround yourself with industry and the absolute necessities, you will never dream. Beauty is a requirement for dreaming. And dreaming is a requirement for innovation. So never underestimate beauty.
Good point to remember.
These gardens are part of the Martian sustainability project because they grow crops that spread easily. So they needed to be isolated and quarantined. And so they're in these boxwood enclosures so that they don't spread.
And the LA?
Again?
And the LA of trees over here?
No, these.
I know, but and the LA too?
And the LA provides the biomass that I need because the hornbeams produce copious amounts of leaves, and they're small and they break down easily. Unlike a maple or an oak leaf, which is so big and it takes nature weeks and months to break it down. Hornbeam leaves break down quite quickly.
The wood itself, though, is really hard.
The wood itself is extremely hard. It's called ironwood for that reason.
Yeah.
But it also grows in poor soil.
Oh.
So it's a win-win.
I guess.
Yeah, this is probably
The second thing that you're going to need in a Martian prospect is water. And like everything at Mezzacello, this pond serves multiple purposes. First of all, it's beautiful. And it's comforting in the summer. Second of all, it provides algae through the biofilters that I pull out and I dehydrate, and that goes right back into the Martian garden. Perfect fertilizer
Yeah.
from fish poop, literally.
Right.
Third, it provides liquid water that can easily be purified because it comes out of the biofilter at about 88% purity. And then I just send it through a UV filter, and from there I just send it through a Giacosa filter, which they use in Japan, and it
Okay.
purifies to 95.8,
Wow.
which is drinkable. So I can feed the
You
animals.
could bottle that and sell it.
I won't, because it's not a renewable resource
Yeah.
unless the rain renews it. But I can feed my animals and water my animals with it.
Sure.
And the animals provide manure, and the animals take waste materials and turn that into manure. So that is part of the enclosed ecosystem. And the last thing is it provides a safe ecosystem for the ducks and the chickens. And they're part of that ecosystem.
Oh, yeah.
So everybody benefits. More than one reason to have a pond. And that pond then feeds into the last two ecosystems of the Martian project, which is the hen yard, where I keep the livestock, the rabbits, the ducks, the chickens. I keep them safe, and it's easily sterilizable.
How many chickens do you have now?
Currently, I have 5 and 16 in an incubator, and they'll be ready on the 8th.
Oh, wow.
And then after 8 weeks, I'll process those, and I'll incubate more. And I process the birds as I go. Some of the birds provide eggs, some of the birds provide meat. All of the birds eventually provide feathers, manure, compost,
Sure.
and they turn my leaves in the formal garden.
Right, right.
Everything has more than one purpose. If your garden only has one purpose, it's probably a hobby. It's not an enclosed ecosystem. And you probably live in the suburbs.
Yeah.
Or you just don't see how Mother Nature cares.
Yeah.
And you're definitely not going to survive with a suburban attitude on a Martian outpost. You're not. I'm flat out telling you, you're not. So the idea of the Project Martian was to collect as much compost from Earth as possible, dry, with no water, and then ship it by rocket over 8 to 4 or 6 months, sometimes 13 months, depending on where Mars is, because it turns. And then deposit it on the planet and have robots start putting it together in layers,
How
and then
cool.
just synthesize water and create plantable beds on Mars
That is
automatically,
really
so
brilliant.
that when the humans showed up, they could just go. And so I would like to show you now what the beds actually look like.
Sure. So this is the Martian project, right,
This is
Jim?
the Martian project. And
Explain it to me again,
Okay,
in
so-
terms that I can understand.
let's start over here.
Uh-huh.
Project Martian was an idea I came up with for a summer camp last year, where I took all the beds that I had, 24 of them, and I removed 30 centimeters of the native clay soil from them and replaced it with fertilizer that I created in an invention that I made last year called a bioreactor. And the bioreactor is designed to live on Mars. It's shipped in these cubic meter containers to Mars, filled with predetermined materials, greens, browns, in the layers that they're necessary from a factory, loaded on a rocket and delivered to Mars. 8 of them for every individual. And then the robots would unload them on Mars and put the bioreactor materials, the chemicals in them, to turn that into compost within 21 days.
So how did you determine 8 per individual?
Because I did the mass that I would need to grow food, and experiments on how much fertilizer would be needed, how much it would grow, how much it would rot down. And to feed a person entirely would require 8 beds, like this.
Amazing.
So each of these is one of those bioreactors.
Got it.
So they need 8 in order to replace the nutrients. And what I realized very quickly was that the compost would mount. Oh, the hawks are here. They know I have chickens. The compost would mound up, and my problem was that the water would run off the sides. So this year, I evolved, I'd raise the bed every year a little bit, so it wouldn't mound and it would be flat. And I'm continuing to augment this compost with more compost. Right now we're doing horse manure that I got from a city horse, so it's local. And
Oh yeah, I saw the picture of the horse the other day. Yeah.
the little horse Jenny.
Right.
She is providing all the horse manure. 1 metric ton of horse manure, well rotted, with
Wow.
sawdust in it. And so what we'll end up doing is we'll end up mounding this a little bit more, and we'll cover it over with burlap like this. And the burlap, like everything at Mezzacello, has more than one purpose. One, it holds water and moisture in. It creates an environment that the micro ecosystem wants. The worms, the fungus, the microorganisms that break the compost down can do so much more quickly with a semi-permeable, water-bearable layer. But it also keeps the weeds out, especially when the plants are growing.
Right.
And it rots down into compost at the end of the season because it's made of jute. So nothing goes to waste here. Nothing. I've designed all systems to be as efficient and economical as possible. And the beautiful thing about the burlap is it allows me to do multiple plantings through the season. Once I've harvested something, I simply pull it out and replace something else in it, and the burlap continues to shade it and hold water in. And with the burlap, I only have to water once a week. So the amount of water...
I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
Not necessarily about farming, but the use of burlap. I'm getting a pretty serious infestation of ants in my back garden. I think I mentioned to you before. And every year a new variety of weeds blows in across the church parking lot behind me and invades my lawn. If I put burlap down, I mean, obviously not only would it eventually become compost, but would it help to control the ants, do you think?
It would, because it would change the ecosystem of the soil underneath it. It would make it moist and wet, and ants don't like that.
Yeah.
They like sandy, dry.
Thank you. I knew there was a good reason I wanted to stop by today.
Absolutely. And,
Great.
I mean, with the burlap, the one caveat with using burlap is, for example, I can't use it here. These are leeks that I started 5 years ago, and they continue to grow and spread. But I have yet to figure out a way to use the burlap with a crop that's already growing. So that's my challenge this year.
Okay.
How do I use the Project Martian technology with the project that will extend?
Yeah.
And I believe it's going to be burlap strips that I'm going to weave it together through there and then just attach it.
Yeah.
But
Simple solution.
Right? So stop back. Industry has already figured this out. They wove fabric. I'll just weave the burlap.
Exactly.
Into it. But nothing new under the sun, right? So, these are how I hold water. You'll have 20 of these for every person on Mars.
Are they rubber or what are they? I mean
Oh, this is rubber.
the pail you're holding, okay.
I'm talking about the IBC.
Right.
This is all rainwater. I use pond water or rainwater. I don't use any city water.
Rainwater just from the shed there? Wow.
Fills this.
Man.
In April and May, the rainy season, this will fill. And I have 2 others.
That's amazing.
I want to close this gate. No, guys. And right now, I only have 2 rabbits because I'm not breeding rabbits. Because it takes a lot of time and effort to raise rabbits because they reproduce so rapidly.
Yeah.
And then I have to harvest
Rabbits
them.
do.
I have to harvest them multiple times a season. And I'm not sure I want to do that this season.
What is the gestation period for a rabbit?
20 days.
Just 20 days, man.
Fast. Once they're pregnant, they're done.
Yeah.
So this was my potential breeding male for Project Martian. Because it's lovely and docile. I need to get in there.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, Alice. And this is really his favorite place.
No, it's a safe place.
He's protected. It's dark.
Yeah.
Alice is a hybrid. He's a 21st century hybrid of a California and a New Zealand.
It's Alice Cooper, right?
Alice Cooper. And I call him Alice Cooper because of his eyes.
Eye makeup, yeah.
But he is a prolific manure maker.
Oh.
So he's useful in that respect. But you can see, compared to the female, he's not as large. And he doesn't produce as much quality meat as the New Zealand's do.
Okay.
And I chose these breeds specifically because they deal with heat well and they deal with cold well. And they are high meat producing birds, and they're easy to find if they get out.
Okay.
They're white.
True.
And everything here is green.
Right.
So if they were a black or a brown bunny, they'd be very difficult to find.
You ready for your close-up, Alice?
Hey, bub. So we're in the hen yard, and the ducks are here, as you can hear. So is Alice. On the ground, sometimes I sprinkle grain just as a treat for the chickens and the ducks, but I don't do it a lot. And the reason for that is because I live in downtown Columbus, and there are hawks and falcons that literally live on the high towers.
Oh, yeah. And I bet they're very attracted to this, aren't they?
They're very attractive.
Yeah.
But the smaller birds are a problem as well because they bring lice. And if I leave grain out like this, they fly in and they nibble on it and they give my birds lice.
Yeah.
So the system I developed is this.
Is it a delicer? Ah.
If you step on this, there's food.
And they learn that quickly.
The
Sure.
birds learn that quickly. But the raccoons, the rats, and the small birds don't know to step on this. And raccoons won't step on this because they don't trust things that aren't stable.
Yeah.
The birds and the possum and the rats don't weigh enough to trigger it.
Okay.
It has to be a bird. So only the birds eat that.
Interesting.
So today is a special day because I needed to get them back here in the hen yard for you. But I generally don't leave grain on the ground at all. And the entire bed here in the hen yard is sterilizable. It's all rubber, which is a big deal. And that also allows me to collect everything at the end in a leach pit, which is perfectly rotted chicken manure that won't hurt my plants. So everything has a system here, almost as if I lived on Mars.
Well, I hope you enjoyed our tour of the farm today. Jim and Rick really are great hosts, and they love taking people on tours of the farm to show them everything that they're doing, and there is a lot to show. You know, in keeping with the farm theme, I was thinking of making like a duck confit or a chicken terrine as an appetizer tonight, but after seeing all those cute chickens and ducks waddling around on the farm, it just didn't have a heart. In fact, when I was a kid, my father would take me hunting with him. I used to try to talk him into catching the rabbits and the chipmunks and the squirrels and taking them home as pets for us. I guess I just don't have much of a killer instinct in me. But, in deference to Jim and Rick's urban farmer's attire, I do have a jaunty hat that makes me look like a gentleman farmer, or maybe Indiana Jones, but maybe just a guy in a hat. So anyway, instead of the duck confit or chicken terrine, I decided to go with something really quick and warm and gooey good. And that is a baked wheel of Camembert cheese. It's probably the easiest thing you can make for an appetizer, whether it's for yourself or for a group. Just buy a wheel of Camembert in the cheese section at your grocery store. Take it out of its plastic wrapper, but then put it back in its little wooden holder, without the top. Score the top of it in kind of a crosshatch pattern pretty deeply, with a knife. Drizzle some honey over the top, sprinkle some sprigs of fresh rosemary, add some chili flakes or some hot pepper flakes just to give it a little bit of a bite. Season it with some sea salt and some pepper to taste, and then pop it in the oven for about 12 to 15 minutes at 350 degrees. It's quick. Serve it with some baguette slices, toasted even better. Eat it as soon as you can when it comes out, when it's its best, gooey good. And the cocktail I'm having with it tonight is called the City of Light. It's a combination of 1.5 ounces of dry vermouth, 1 ounce of Lillet, my favorite, 1 ounce of Cointreau. Fill the glass about 2/3 full of ice, and then top it off with dry Prosecco. Garnish it with orange wheels and fresh cucumbers, and it's a perfect summer cocktail. Salut! Nice. Thank you again for joining us today, and I hope to see you again soon. Until then, au revoir from the Urban Chateau.